and welcome to a bonus episode of The Witch Wave. Surprise! And hooray! Because yes, at long last, my new book, Magic Maker, The Enchanted Path to Creativity, is out now. I am so overjoyed to finally share it with you, and I hope it brings you so much magic and inspiration, and that it spurs you to make the magic you're meant to make through your own creative offerings. Now, if you're listening to this episode on the day it drops, which is Tuesday, October 14th, and if you happen to be in New York City, please join me tonight for the Magic Maker book launch at Book Club Bar in the East Village. I'll be in conversation with the occulture writer Mitch Horowitz, my old pal and recent Witch Wave guest. I'll be signing books after, and I'm told there will be cake. So come on by at 8 p.m. I would love to see you there. And if you can't make it, have no fear. There are tons of other Magic Maker events happening both in person and online. So check out pamgrossman.com/events to find out about all of them. Okay, so I was recently a guest on one of my favorite bewitching podcasts, Missing Witches. I love this show, and I think Amy and Risa are such thoughtful interviewers and writers themselves. And our conversation about Magic Maker was such a pleasure to do that I asked if I could just share it with you all. And even though this episode won't air on their show until Samhain, they have graciously and generously allowed me to release it early here for you now. So Amy and Risa, thank you so much for your support over the years, and particularly for being so enthusiastic about Magic Maker. You are both a couple of major Magic Makers yourselves, and it was an honor to be back on your show. And Witch Wavers, if you're not already listening to Missing Witches, go ahead and add them to your podcast diet. That doesn't sound very delicious. Add them to your podcast posse. You get the point. The show is so wonderful. They alternate between interviewing contemporary witches and featuring in-depth explorations on historical witches and witchy foremothers like Pamela Coleman Smith and Yoko Ono. And they're just such fantastic humans. So I recommend you follow the Missing Witches podcast and that you read Amy and Risa's wonderful books and all the other things that they do. Alrighty, so happy Magic Maker launch day. Thank you so much for your support. Thanks for picking up a copy of the book and sharing about it and telling all your friends and covens that it is out. Hail Mercury, and here is, well, me on the Missing Witches podcast.
If you want to support the Missing Witches project, join the coven and come hang out with us. Or buy our books, New Moon Magic and Missing Witches, and our deck of oracles, the Missing Witches Deck of Oracles. Find everything you need to know at missingwitches.com.
You aren't being a proper woman, therefore you must be a witch. 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 You must be a witch.
Hi, Coven, and welcome to another episode of the Missing Witches podcast. I'm Amy, and I'm here with Risa. For Samhain this year, this halfway point between autumn equinox and winter solstice, we've invited a witch who needs no introduction, but I'm going to give her one anyway. Pam Grossman is a writer, a curator, a teacher, and of course, a witch. You may know her as the host of the Witch Wave podcast or as the author of Waking the Witch, Reflections on Women, Magic, and Power, a book that has become a touchstone for our coven and for contemporary witches everywhere. Pam's new book is called Magic Maker, The Enchanted Path to Creativity. And I have honestly been waiting for a book about the intersection of witchcraft and creativity. So thank you, Pam. And welcome, Pam Grossman. Yay. Hi.
Yay, hello. I am so thrilled to be here. Thank you so much for having me. It's so great to see you both.
We are always thrilled to hang out with you whenever we get a chance. So, again, thanks for sitting down with us and being in circle with us and celebrating this dark time that is creeping, 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 creeping. I'm sure most of our listeners are familiar with you and your work. So, what is something we don't know about you, or something that you want our coven to know about you before we roll into the whole interview
Oh my
deal?
goodness. What's coming to mind is that, I'm like a real comedy nerd. When I'm not making my podcast, there's only a select few witchy podcasts I listen to. Yours is one of them. But usually I'm listening to comedy podcasts. I'm a diehard SNL fan. I literally haven't missed an episode probably since I was 11 years old. And I follow like the comings and goings of the SNL cast the way some people follow football. Like I'm really deeply into it. And yeah, I have no desire to be a stand-up comic or anything like that. Maybe I have a little desire to do like sketch comedy still from, held over from when I was a kid, but it's just something that gives me deep pleasure. So getting to write about comedy and playfulness a little bit in this book was really, really fun.
Two follow-ups. Number one, how are you ever home on a Saturday night? I don't believe it. Do you like record it with your
Yes,
DVR?
it's usually a Sunday morning viewing over like coffee or, well, in my case, tea. And so yeah, it's just like a ritual that I have, and it just gives me so much pleasure. I feel like, I don't know, especially as a New Yorker as well, there's this feeling of family almost to whomever the cast is. And so I just love it.
I was so happy that you brought this up, because reading book, I was like, oh, there's comedians, there's musicians, there's writers. You really cover this whole gamut of what creativity means, and it's so exciting. I would love for you to open with a reading. The section is called, listeners, Magic Maid.
Okay,
Thank
here we
you.
go. Thanks for asking. I don't think I've actually read out loud from the book since I did the audiobook, so I appreciate getting to do this with you. Magic Maid. It's my belief that everyone is born with innate creative gifts, and that sharing those gifts with the world is our magical mission. Honing the skills we've been granted takes no small amount of labor and courage, but luckily we have help on our side. Spirit wants us to make use of these gifts, and it will do everything in its power to assist us in the process. Our job as magic makers is to meet Spirit halfway. We can do this by consciously inviting it to work with us and setting up the best possible circumstances that allow its presence to come through with clarity and ease. This means making it feel welcome and wanted, and opening oneself up to being a gracious receiver of its messages. It means fully committing to the craft of shaping the inspired information that Spirit sends us into a suitable, useful, even beautiful form. And it means staying with the magic, no matter what distractions, doubts, and other demons arrive to try to undermine the process. We begin by readying ourselves to co-create something with Spirit that wasn't there before. We make believe, we make way, we make fun. We make fools of ourselves. We make magicians of ourselves. We show up and stand tall, trusting that whatever we make will be of use, because in the making of it, we keep creative force flowering and flowing. We enter the magic chamber with one arm skyward and one arm earthward, poised to pull ragged lightning and raw sparks down from the heavens and form them into fire. We begin.
And so we begin. There are so many, I mean, this is like a page and a half, but there's so many takeaways here. Like the idea that spirit wants us to create is so powerful. I mean, I read once that public speaking is the number one phobia in North America.
Mm-hmm.
And, we were talking about stand-up comedy. I'm a performer. I've been on stage many, 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 many times. Stand-up comedy is the most terrifying idea to me because you can't just you have to have a reaction from the audience or you can't get it. But we make fools of ourselves. We make magicians of ourselves. I think this is such an important command or idea or permission slip that if people's number one phobia is public speaking, that means that they're more afraid of making a fool of themselves than they are of like dying from a tall height or a snake bite or whatever else people are afraid of. So how do you like how have you made yourself okay with being a fool, having fun as a goal?
Yeah. What a beautiful question. When I was writing that, I was certainly thinking about allowing oneself to push past feelings of self-consciousness and self-criticism and all of those other things for sure. And I was thinking about the Fool card of tarot, because one of the guiding images of Magic Maker is the Magician card. And in the book, I really unpack that image and I talk a lot about the creative person or the artist being a bridge between realms and really connecting the celestial realm with the terrestrial realm, right? And you're this kind of conduit, as the magician is in tarot, between these different realms. And then you're manifesting force into form when you make something. But in order to do that, if you think about the major arcana, you have to begin as a fool. And the fool is, as many people listening will presumably be aware, the fool isn't just like an idiot or a jester. That's kind of part of the archetype, but it's also about beginner's mind. It's about having this openness and this sense of being okay with taking a leap of faith, a leap into mystery, being okay with not knowing, with not being in total control. And so when I was thinking about this book, and when I think about how I approach a lot of my creative practice, it's about knowing that there's probably going to be some discomfort involved. We don't know how it's going to turn out. We can't control everything, even the most skilled among us. And I think there's something really exciting about that. And it's certainly something that I'm not always comfortable with. I mean, I can be a real control freak. It's something I've been working on in therapy. But I have found magic has helped me let go and do a trust fall into mystery. And that has then helped me get out of my own way a little bit more and be more receptive and by extension, more productive, because I'm not like hyper controlling and hyper criticizing everything I'm doing as I'm making it, or at least that is the goal.
I want to know what the feedback loop was like for you in your magical practice of writing this book and looking at your practice and living your work and doing this huge curatorial work that is this book, of bringing in so many creative practices, but then having to like live it alongside. You tell the story of it through the book, but I wonder what it was like to feel that and how it changed your magic.
Yes. in the book, I write that I have had to practice what I priestess, and especially with this book, because as I was writing it, I was also using a lot of the techniques I was writing about to create this book or to co-create this book with Spirit. And what was nice about that is that I was kind of my own guinea pig in a way, my own test subject. And so when the inevitable feelings of insecurity would come up, or feeling daunted, or feeling stuck, all those things that can happen during the creative process, I was like, ooh, well, actually, this is kind of useful because I can really look at this, study it, and write about it. And there's a whole section in the book about trying to slay your creative demons. And so a lot of the demons that I write about, perfectionism, the demon of suffering, the demon of scarcity, all of these different demons would show up as I was writing the book. And I was like, all right, that's okay then, because this happens for most creative people. And so I can study them and I can then put them into the book. Likewise, every time, and without exception, and I don't recommend, or rather I don't suggest that you have to do it this way, but for me, writing this book, every single time I sat down to write, I called Magic Circle. I lit up my altar to Mercury, because Mercury is one of the guiding deities of this book. And I really went into this devotional space of making sure that Spirit knew that whatever came through that day, I knew it was divine. And I knew that I, in turn, was being tasked with making it an offering to the world. And then to close the feedback loop, that is then an offering back up to Spirit, right? And so it was really helpful for me, honestly, to have to use a lot of the techniques in order to write this book, to then kind of reprove to myself that they, in fact, are effective. And I've used many of these techniques before, but I was very, very diligent about it. And so it was very useful in this case. And look, and I know this is way too long of an answer, so I'll just quickly end by saying, in general, using magical techniques, I have found, has helped bring more ease to my creative work. It's helped quiet my anxiety, and it's helped me let go of those perfectionist tendencies, because I'm like, well, this isn't just about me. Like, this, something else is in partnership with me. I'm not a passive vessel. This book is not just free associated words that came through. There is the human part of shaping and molding and adding intention and all of that craft and labor. But I was able to really trust that this book was becoming what it needed to be. And even now that the book is out, and of course there are things, and this happens with anybody, I think, once they write a book, it's like, I wish I added this, or I wish I could change that, or you find typos, all the things, right? But it's helped me really lean into, again, that sense of surrender, that this is what Spirit wanted this book to be and how it wanted it to come through me. And it helps quell some of that anxiousness a bit for me. Not all the way, but some of the way, which I'm very grateful for.
I'm completely obsessed with this section of the book. I just, listeners, if you don't have the book yet, these are the demons: self-doubt, distraction, inertia, scarcity, perfectionism, suffering, judgment. So, I mean, I am quite familiar with this group of demons myself, and I imagine that all of our listeners are too. And I think there's this thing in capitalism and hegemony that wants us to be strong and powerful and nothing gets to me. And I'm sure everyone in the world looks at you as this powerful and all powerful even witch. So can you talk a little bit about this like vulnerability as strength? Like why you shepherded these demons into this space? Why did you admit that to us?
Oh, first of all, I think most people in the world have no fucking idea who I am. But to your point, and I appreciate the spirit in which it was intended. Um, you know, I always appreciate when other people are vulnerable and honest, especially when my heroes say, "Oh, no, 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 I really struggled with this," or "I felt uncomfortable," or "Oh my gosh, that came out totally differently than I thought." Whatever it is. And I'm not saying that I'm anyone's hero, but in writing this book, I just wanted to be very, very honest that these are things that I struggle with, because I think the more specific and I'm going to use the word authentic, sorry, but the more authentic we are about our insecurities and vulnerabilities, first of all, I think the less power they have over us if we name them and we take them out into the light and look at them. But also, I think it's hopefully a generous impulse, because I think unless you're a total sociopath, I think everybody, most people are familiar with some, if not all of these demons in their life, throughout their life. So I just wanted to let the reader know that of course I battle with these demons all the time. And I think that's normal. I think it's expected. I think a lot of people stop themselves from making what they're meant to make because they're like, "Oh, I feel uncomfortable," or "Oh, I'm scared." It's like everybody's uncomfortable. Everyone's scared. You know, there's this quote in the book from David Bowie, and this quote has gone around Instagram, and I'm sure several people have seen it already. But it's a quote where he's like, and I'm going to mangle it, and I should have had it queued up, but it's something to the effect of, if you feel like your feet can't quite touch the bottom, you know, like let's say you're like in an ocean of creativity, but you're feeling at sea, you know, and you feel that discomfort and that like, "Oh shit, I'm unmoored. I don't know what's happening here. I don't know what's coming next." He said, "That's exactly how you're supposed to feel. We're supposed to get out of our comfort zone. We're dealing with mystery. We're making things that have never been made before. It's supposed to be uncomfortable and fucking weird." And so I thought if I wrote about that, it would hopefully help people push through those feelings and keep going, because that's what spirit wants us to do. It wants us to finish. It wants us to make stuff. And that's our job. You know, the judgment and the criticism and all that shit, that's not our job. We're here to make things.
You talk kind of a lot about this notion of sacred discomfort in the book. And I think for people who do have fears or whatever, that this is going to really be like something that's going to allow people to break through. This book is going to be something that's going to allow people to break through those fears and do something, to get comfortable with the discomfort of doing something new, trying something that you've never tried before, getting up on stage and doing stand-up comedy, all of those things. So again, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Oh, I'm so glad that you responded to that section that way. That was certainly the intention. And you know, I've said this before, but often I write the books that I need. You know, I don't have all the answers, and writing a book lets me ask the questions. And so this book is also for me. It's trying to help me feel braver, and it's trying to help me push through those demonic moments of doubt and insecurity. And it's to help me keep making the things I'm meant to make, even though I often feel uncomfortable or feel like I don't totally know what I'm doing. So I'm so happy that that resonates with you. That makes me feel really happy.
I want to talk about erasing the line between spirituality or your spiritual practice and creativity. That line like lit through my body. It's totally something that is core to Amy and I's like friendship and collaboration. We met in a green room at a show. We started as creative collaborators, and we feel like that allowed everything else to happen because we met in a space where we acknowledged each other as creators. And so there's something there that I want to hear you talk about more, that our spiritual practice can be a creative practice, a play practice. We can get closer to spirit through creation, and that we can like become creators through our spiritual play and reverence. That value in the book is, I think, going to be so life-changing, and I want to hear you talk more about it.
So for a very long time, I definitely kept my spiritual life and my creative life separate. There was kind of a bifurcation between them, not even consciously. I was a super creative kid. I loved to write poetry and music and perform and make art. And I loved to cast spells and, light my candles and do my rituals. And my bedroom, it's funny because my bedroom has shown up in every book I've written. Like it was just such a sacred cauldron for me when I was growing up. But my bedroom really was this space where I could like get super weird and make stuff. I could make art, I could make magic. And it was this sense of like very deep play and being in flow and feeling like I was in this liminal space where I had total freedom to manifest things. But it wasn't until I got older, like was a full ass adult, when I realized looking back, like, I was doing the same shit. Like I was entering this magic circle and setting this, sacred space to receive creative force, as I call it. And I was intentionally doing these like symbolic actions to try to communicate with something, capital O, other, and manifest some kind of transformation, whether it was like through the art I was working on or the poetry I was writing. I was doing that because I was trying to make a change in the world, right? Change my emotions, maybe change the emotions of someone who might encounter my poem, even if nobody ever read it. You're trying to manifest like a shift in energy and make something new. And the same is true when I was casting spells, perhaps a little bit more obviously. And then I realized so many of the artists that I was in love with, from the surrealists like Remedios Varo and Leonora Carrington to musicians like Tori Amos and David Bowie and Bjork. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. That not only was I responding to the subject matter in their work, which is often mythological and magical, but that they were using magical techniques, even if they didn't call it that, to generate their work. I know I keep writing about or bringing up David Bowie, and I write about him a lot in the book. He's a real creative hero and sort of creative ancestor of mine, a chosen creative ancestor of mine. But he had a practice of essentially divination. He came up with this computer program called the Verbicizer. He would put in random lyrics and words, and then at the touch of a button, it would kind of like shuffle the cards, if you will. It would mix up all his lyrics, and then it would spit out, the lyrics in a certain order. That is a form of divinatory practice. You're letting spirit sort of make the choice for you. You're leaving it up to chance. And certainly he had a lot of other interests in the occult and so on throughout his career. Same with Remedios Varo and Leonora Carrington. I grew up loving their work, but it wasn't until I got older and really studied them deeply that I was like, oh, they studied Kabbalah and tarot and Gurdjieff and witchcraft. And, you know, Remedios Varo had a practice of surrounding her canvases with crystals intentionally when she painted. That's magic, and that is blending magic and creativity. So one of the goals of the book is not only to share my practice, but to show that so many artists that people admire have pulled on these threads, and that it's not a weird thing to do. Like, it's actually pretty normal, even if people haven't thought of it as magic or witchcraft, that this is part of the human history of making things.
I have to ask about a specific spell that you did that I have been waiting months and months to have the opportunity to talk to you about. Maybe you know where I'm going with this, but you joined Jinx Monsoon, a sold out Carnegie Hall show on Valentine's Day just this year. And y'all performed a live love spell that, according to the source I looked at anyway, is believed to be the first public spell cast on the Carnegie stage. I was lucky enough that Kenny, shout out Kenny, I love you. I love you so much. Sent me
Love
the
you,
text.
Kenny.
Love you, Kenny. Sent me the text of the spell. But I need to know how this came about. How did you and Jinx work together on the actual text of the spell? How did this come to be?
Thank you for asking about that. It's funny. Someone else recently asked me, like, is there anything I wish I could have put into this book? And there's so much I wish I could have put into this book. And one of the things is that experience, but it happened after I had pretty much been done with the book, and it just would have been too much to add it. But I love talking about it because it really is such a great example of putting a lot of these principles into practice. So to back up a little bit, I know Jinx and you both are fans of each other, and she's been on your show. She's been on my show a few times on the Witch Wave, my podcast. And she and I have become friends over the years. I think when she was first getting interested in witchcraft, and you can hear her talk about this on my show. I was also on her podcast, which I think isn't going on anymore because she's so busy. But
she's the busiest.
The busiest. But you can hear her years ago kind of grappling with this idea of like, wait, she felt like she was a witch, but she also like is very irreverent, and she didn't want to offend anybody, and she didn't know if she really could kind of claim this for herself, and she was kind of working it out. And she and I had a lot of conversations about the fact that like you can be a witch any which way you want to be. There is no Pope of witchcraft, and having a spirit of what I call reverent irreverence is actually like very much part of the tradition of witchcraft. Gerald Gardner, one of the kind of fathers of Wicca, he has this great line in one of his books where he says, witches are consummate leg pullers. Like, witches often have a great sense of humor, right? And there's a little bit of, trickery and playfulness and fun, baked into the archetype, I think. Anyhow, she and I became friends. I saw her perform many times. We hung out. Like we just really developed this beautiful friendship of mutual respect and real appreciation for each other's work. She started blending witchcraft more into her drag persona. If you watch season 7, I believe it is, of All Stars, RuPaul's All Stars, she embodies the archetype of the witch, I think at least 4 times during that run, that series. And spoiler alert, she goes on to win All Stars. She becomes, I think the phrase is Queen of all queens. Is that right? And even when she wins and they crown her. She has her scepter and she claims it. She claims her win in the name of Hecate, goddess of witchcraft. And I was just like, fuck yes. My point is, Jinx like has fully integrated her witchcraft practice into her drag persona. And her drag persona is very expansive. It's not only about being a witch, but it's part of the persona. And so I've just found it really moving to witness that and to have played any part in giving her a permission slip, which PS she did not actually need. But if I played any part in helping her be more confident and coming out of the broom closet, like it is an honor of my life, you know? Fast forward, she one day FaceTimes me. This is in July of last year in 2024. And she says, hey, I'm going to be performing at Carnegie Hall. It's my debut show. It's going to be on Valentine's Day. And I want you to be in the show. And I want you to cast a love spell. And I was first of all, so overjoyed for her to be on that legendary stage. For people who don't follow Jinx as closely as the three of us do, you know, since she has won RuPaul's Drag Race twice, she's gone on to become a Broadway star. I mean, just starring in so many shows. As we record this, she's just finishing up her run in Oh Mary, but she's been, you know, doing all this other stuff. But for her to do her Carnegie Hall debut with a band and the whole thing, you know, that's the stuff of legend. So I was thrilled for her and so honored to be invited to do it. And to answer your question in terms of how we came up with the spell, first of all, let me say that the show was co-written and directed by another hero of mine, Bendela Creme, Jinx's best friend, incredible drag queen herself, another total hero of mine. And I'd met Dela a couple times briefly, but for me to be working with her too was just like beyond. And they pretty much gave me free license to write the spell I wanted to write, to, you know, get the costume I wanted to get. They were basically just like, be fabulous. They're like, you're never going to outshine Jinx. Like, it's just not possible. So be as grand and magical and beautiful as you possibly can be in terms of your costume and so on. But they really trusted me. And so I worked with this incredible costume designer that I know, Normandy Sherwood, and designed this incredible costume, which we don't have to get into all those details. But I wrote this spell, and the love spell was really about, and Jinx did ask, it was important to her that there was some element of integrating the masculine and the feminine. That was one of the things she requested. Which was great by me because we're very much on the same page about that. And, you know, but beyond that, I wrote this spell that was really about trying to amplify the spirit of love for everyone in that audience, particularly because as you can imagine, her audience is primarily queer and lots of trans folks are in her audience. And this spell, we didn't know this at the time. We didn't know who was going to be president when she first invited me. We now know who the president is, unfortunately. And we didn't know that in terms of divine timing that this would happen, that the week of the show is when the president announced that at the Kennedy Center, drag was going to be banned. And lots of other like terrible things were happening in the news around queer and trans issues. And so I knew that I wanted to fortify this audience and that I wanted to shift that feeling of fear that many of us are feeling into a feeling of absolute love and strength and radiance. And so that's really what the spell was about. I also knew I wanted it to not just be me performing a spell. I wanted the audience to be casting the spell with me. So there are parts of the spell that are call and response. There are parts of the spell where there's like me and the audience toning together to activate it. And that was important to me too, because I wanted for me and everyone there to also be able to say that they sang in Carnegie Hall, even if it was just for one note. So anyway, it was a great honor. It was such a joy to do. I was very nervous about it. I was super stressed about it, but I also knew that I was being called to do this for a reason, and that, you know, I had all these visions of like, what if I set the stage on fire? What if I trip? What if I puke all over myself? Like that's what my lovely brain does when it's nervous. And thank goodness I have a wonderful therapist. But I also, my higher frequency self was also like, honey, you're being called by spirit to do this. And it is not about you. This is about honoring Jinx. This is about helping everyone in that audience feel less afraid, feel more connected to each other and to capital L love. And as soon as I shifted into that focus, I was like, I'm good. This is going to be about all of us. So anyhow, that was a very long answer, but it was a great, great honor. And it also happened to be on my birthday. I was born on Valentine's Day. So the best birthday I have ever had.
I just want you to know that the spell worked. I read a blog post at the time by someone I didn't know, someone I'd never heard of, who was at the show, a fan of Jinx, obviously, but not at all a witch. And they talked about how powerful and loved and held like how amazing the experience was. Even from outside of that witchcraft lens, the audience felt it. I just need you to know that that spell worked.
That gives me the chills. Like my body really responded to your words just now. It felt really powerful. And I knew that a lot of folks there probably had never done any witchcraft or never cast a spell before, or didn't realize they ever had, because I think we all make magic, even if we don't call it that. What do we think making a wish on our birthday candles is? Like when you toss a penny into a fountain, like you're casting a little spell, right? But anyhow, and I made sure there were some lines in there that were sincere, but also funny, to make sure people knew, like, we're laughing, we're having fun, like
we're having
again,
orgasms.
Reverent irreverence. Yes, there is a line in there about conjuring orgasms for everybody. And that was certainly to cut some of the tension, but also sincere. I do want everyone to have orgasms. That's like a capital G good in the world, right? So I'm so happy that you read some of that feedback. I've heard other folks say similar things, and it makes me just so grateful. I'm so grateful I was able to do that with Jinx, and I will never stop being grateful to her.
Do you have dreams or visions of other large scale ritual or spell work?
Hugely. This is one of my biggest dreams right now.
Yes.
Is to take that experience and figure out, I was going to say how to scale it. It was already like scaled, but to really offer, I have big visions of offering public ritual for people that also incorporates drag and music and, maybe even comedy. Like, I want to do these art rituals, and I would love to be, the MC hostess of it, and offer my craft to it. But I also don't want it to be just about me. Like, I want to bring in lots of other creative folks, and I've started talking to some producers about it and some artists about it. And one thing I'm trying to manifest with it is is the resources for it. Because in my mind, there's fucking production value. Okay. There are costumes, there are props. It is opulent as fuck. So let's help me please manifest this. I really think it would be so fun. I think it would be healing for people and unifying. And just in terms of my craft and my gifts, doing more performance and getting to wear costumes and make music and all these things, this is also part of who I am. And I feel called to express that side of my magic more these days too.
I have a kind of specific question. You wrote when in Magic Maker, The Enchanted Path to Creativity, out now. When I write, I listen to specifically selected music that helps me stay in a state of energy flow. So can you give
Yes.
us like a specific example or examples of the music that you use, and maybe we can incorporate some of those songs into our own practices?
Yes. My number one talismanic album, which I listened to every single time I sat down to write Magic Maker, and which I often put on at the beginning of a project. It's like a sonic spell for me. I don't know if it will work for anyone else, but it does for me. And this is an EP by Lycanthia. If you are familiar with the Witch Wave theme music, that's the song Hand and I by Lycanthia. Well, that song comes from a 5-track EP that she put out called Migration. She's since put out, a full-length album that is also so beautiful. But this EP, there's just something about it that when I put it on, it's a signal to me and spirit. It's like me putting the key in the car, right? Like I'm firing up the ignition. I don't know. I don't know how a car fucking works, but you get the metaphor.
You're turning it on.
Yes. And so I listen to that album as I'm beginning, and then it shifts into like other music for sure. Usually when I'm writing, and that album is an exception, usually I can't write to English language music. My brain gets distracted. So I have a whole giant Spotify. I know Spotify is terrible. I do need to shift away from it. But I do have a big Spotify playlist that is filled with music that I find sacred, that either doesn't have words or it's not in English. So it doesn't distract my brain. Lycanthia's music does have English words, but for some reason it just really works for me. It's so beautiful. She's a fucking genius.
There's someone in the chat saying they picked up that EP because of the interview that you did
I'm
on that
so
show.
glad.
So yes, you are
I'm so
spreading the
glad.
gospel.
She's something. I mean, and PS, that's just something she does sometimes. She also is like a professor at Columbia, and she is from she's of South Asian descent, but she is a scholar of Roman ancient history. Like she's just like a wild polymath genius of a person. Her newest album is, draws more on like Sanskrit than a little bit more on her ancestral lineage. It is also so beautiful. I'm just the biggest fan of hers.
What are you doing for Samhain? What are you doing for Halloween? Do you see a Halloween party as different than a Samhain party?
I don't know what I'm doing for Halloween quite yet. I know that for Samhain, on November 1st, I'm actually doing an event for the book. My husband and I have a little house upstate now. We still are renters here in Brooklyn, but we bought a little house upstate a few years ago, and we have a really nice magical community that I've found. And one of the people I've become dear friends with is a woman named Allison Ward, which is such a magical name. And she owns a shop called Madame Fortuna. It's like, you would both love it. It's vintage clothes and beautiful objects and furniture and jewelry. And she has the best taste. Like, she is my jewelry and clothing whisperer now. It's very dangerous because she has such good taste. she just knows my style and taste, which is very specific. So she often finds me beautiful things. Anyway, she's become a dear friend, and she has offered to co-host a book party for me. So we're going to do some ritual for Samhain. We're going to build a little ancestor altar. I think I'm going to call in some creative ancestors on that night. And so that'll be special. That's at Madame Fortuna on November 1st. And then in terms of my own private like celebration, to be honest, I rarely go to Halloween parties anymore. As I imagine it is for you both, October's like my busy season for work. It's fun, sacred work, but it is my job. And so I often keep days free because I sometimes get last minute requests for this or that. But I also am, by the time I get to Halloween, quite tired from working so much during October that usually Matt and I, my husband and I, will just kind of like stay in and watch horror movies and eat candy like everybody else.
I love it. As we approach the end of our hour, we know how busy you are. So we don't want to keep you terribly long, but for me, it's page 327. Can you close us out? The section is A Magician Imagines. It's this little italic piece.
Oh, yes.
When I first got the book, whenever I get a book, I just do like a sort of, like a bibliomancy, and this, I posted it immediately as soon as I got this book, because I was like, this is the mantra that I want and for all of us to have in our hearts. So if you could read it to us and our coven and our listeners, and hopefully we can really absorb it. This is, of course, from Magic Maker, The Enchanted Path to Creativity by Pam Grossman, out now.
Yes, thank you so much. And this is sort of kind of the final blessing of the book. And I'll just read those 4 lines. Here you go. May you know your own limitlessness. May you be guided by the gods of imagination. May your creations be portals for enchantment. May your life be a love spell cast in all realms. So mote it be, and so it is.
And blessed fucking be.
Blessed be.
I want to thank you for Magic Maker. The book is incredible. Also for Waking the Witch. Also for Witch Weave. Also for hanging out with us today. Also, just so much gratitude. We love you.
Yeah, we love you so much.
I love you both so much. I continue to be such an admirer of your work, and people are constantly asking me about other witchy podcasts that I love, and yours is the podcast I always recommend at the top of that list, because what you craft is done with such love, such intellectual rigor and research, which as nerd witches, we all appreciate. And you just have such big, beautiful, radiant, expansive hearts. So I am so grateful to you both for helping me usher in Magic Maker, and for having this conversation, and for just making the magic that you both make. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
We're both teary now. It's such an honor. Yeah, it's reading your book is just like being immersed in a world of brilliant research. So to hear that from you really, really means a lot. Yeah. We love you.
Happy Samhain.
Love you,
Happy Samhain, everybody.
Samhain.
And blessed fucking be.
You aren't being a proper woman, therefore you must be a witch. You must be a witch.
As leaves and empires fall around me, fall around me, fall around me, as leaves and empires Fall around me, fall around me, fall around me. I give thanks, I give thanks for the spirit in all things, for the magic that it brings. For the seasons change and so must I. Samhain is nigh, Samhain is nigh, Samhain is nigh. If you want to support the Missing Witches Project, join the coven and come hang out with us. Or buy our books, New Moon Magic and Missing Witches, and our deck of oracles, the Missing Witches Deck of Oracles. Find everything you need to know at missingwitches.com.